The Paris Climate Agreement was adopted on December 12, 2015, during COP21 in Paris. This landmark event marked a significant step in global efforts to combat climate change. The agreement aims to bring all nations into a common cause to undertake ambitious efforts to combat climate change and adapt to its effects. The negotiation process was challenging, involving representatives from 196 countries. It required balancing the diverse needs and capabilities of both developed and developing nations. The Paris Climate Agreement is legally binding for those countries that ratify it. Its primary aim is to keep a global temperature rise this century well below 2 degrees Celsius above pre-industrial levels. Additionally, it seeks to limit the temperature increase even further to 1.5 degrees Celsius. The agreement also aims to enhance the ability of countries to deal with the impacts of climate change. Thus, the Paris Agreement is not just about reducing emissions, but also about fostering sustainable development. The primary objective of the Paris Climate Agreement is to limit global warming. Specifically, it aims to keep the increase in global average temperature to well below 2 degrees Celsius above pre-industrial levels. It also strives to limit this increase to 1.5 degrees Celsius. Another critical objective is to enhance the ability of countries to adapt to the adverse impacts of climate change. This means improving resilience and reducing vulnerability to climate-related hazards. The agreement includes commitments from all countries to submit nationally determined contributions, or NDCs. These NDCs outline each country's plans to reduce greenhouse gas emissions and adapt to climate change impacts. Countries are required to update their NDCs every 5 years to reflect their highest possible ambition and to report on their progress. Additionally, the agreement aims to align financial flows with low-emission and climate-resilient pathways. The Green Climate Fund plays a vital role in this context by providing financial assistance to countries in need. Major countries have taken on significant roles and commitments under the Paris Climate Agreement. The United States rejoined in 2021, aiming to cut emissions by 50 to 52% by 2030. China plans to peak emissions before 2030 and achieve carbon neutrality by 2060. The EU targets a 55% reduction by 2030 and climate neutrality by 2050. India aims to cut emissions intensity by 33 to 35% and achieve 40% non-fossil power by 2030. These commitments are crucial in the global effort to combat climate change. Countries are implementing measures to meet their Paris Climate Agreement commitments. The US invests in renewable energy like wind and solar. Policies promote energy efficiency and electrification of transport. China expands renewable energy and electric vehicles. The EU's Green Deal reduces emissions and promotes clean energy. India targets ambitious solar and wind energy capacity. These actions show a global commitment to climate change. Since the Paris Climate Agreement was implemented, there have been notable positive impacts globally. One significant outcome is the increased investment in renewable energy. Countries are shifting away from fossil fuels and investing in solar, wind and hydroelectric power. This transition is reducing greenhouse gas emissions and promoting sustainable energy sources. Another positive impact is the heightened awareness and action on climate change. The agreement has galvanized governments, businesses and individuals to take climate change seriously. There is a growing recognition of the need for sustainable practices in various sectors, from agriculture to transportation. The agreement has also fostered international collaboration and innovation. Countries are sharing knowledge, technologies and resources to address climate change more effectively. Initiatives like the Green Climate Fund are providing financial support to developing countries, enabling them to implement climate mitigation and adaptation projects. Additionally, the Paris Agreement has led to the development and implementation of policies that promote climate resilience. Countries are enhancing their disaster preparedness and response strategies. Despite its positive impacts, the Paris Climate Agreement faces several challenges and criticisms. One major challenge is the gap between commitments and actual emissions reductions. Some countries are not on track to meet their NDC targets. This discrepancy raises concerns about the effectiveness of the agreement in achieving its long-term goals. Another criticism is the lack of legally binding enforcement mechanisms. While the agreement is legally binding, the NDCs are not. This means there are no penalties for countries that fail to meet their commitments. Critics argue that this weakens the agreement's ability to hold countries accountable and ensure compliance. The issue of climate finance is also a significant challenge. Developing countries need substantial financial support to implement their climate commitments. However, the promised $100 billion per year in climate finance from developed countries has not been fully realized. This shortfall hampers the ability of developing nations to pursue low-carbon development and adaptation measures. Moreover, there is criticism regarding the pace of action. Continued global cooperation is essential for the success of the Paris Climate Agreement. Climate change is a global issue that transcends national boundaries. Therefore, it requires collective action and shared responsibility. Countries must work together to implement effective solutions and support each other in their climate efforts. One key aspect of global cooperation is the sharing of technology and best practices. Developed countries have the resources and expertise to develop innovative climate solutions. By sharing these technologies with developing countries, they can help accelerate global progress in reducing emissions and enhancing climate resilience. Financial support is also crucial for continued cooperation. Developed countries must fulfill their commitments to provide climate finance to developing nations. This financial assistance is vital for enabling these countries to implement their NDCs and pursue sustainable development. It ensures that the transition to a low-carbon economy is inclusive and equitable. Furthermore, international collaboration is needed to address the transboundary nature of climate impacts. By working together, countries can achieve greater and more sustainable outcomes. Looking ahead, the future prospects of the Paris Climate Agreement depend on continued innovation and commitment. Technological advancements in renewable energy, energy storage, and electric vehicles hold great potential for reducing emissions. Countries must invest in research and development to drive these innovations forward. One promising area is the development of carbon capture and storage, or CCS technologies. CCS can capture carbon dioxide emissions from industrial sources and store them underground. This technology has the potential to significantly reduce emissions from sectors that are difficult to decarbonize, such as cement and steel production. Another area of innovation is in sustainable agriculture. Practices such as precision farming, agroforestry, and regenerative agriculture can reduce emissions and enhance carbon sequestration. These practices also improve soil health and biodiversity, contributing to overall ecosystem resilience. Additionally, the integration of digital technologies can enhance climate action. Several countries have demonstrated successful implementation of the Paris Climate Agreement through innovative policies and practices. Denmark, for example, has made significant progress in its transition to renewable energy. The country generates a substantial portion of its electricity from wind power and aims to be fossil fuel-free by 2050. Costa Rica is another notable example. The country has achieved remarkable success in renewable energy and forest conservation. Nearly all of its electricity comes from renewable sources, primarily hydroelectric power. Costa Rica has also implemented robust policies to protect its forests, contributing to significant carbon sequestration. New Zealand has set ambitious climate targets and is focusing on reducing emissions in agriculture. The country is implementing measures to promote sustainable farming practices and reduce methane emissions from livestock. Morocco has emerged as a leader in solar energy. The country has invested in large-scale solar projects such as the Noor Solar Complex. The Paris Climate Agreement represents a pivotal moment in global efforts to combat climate change. It has set a framework for international cooperation and ambitious climate action. Despite challenges, the agreement has led to significant positive impacts. Continued global cooperation is crucial. Sharing knowledge and resources is essential. Financial support for developing countries ensures an inclusive transition. Innovation is key to achieving the goals. Technological advancements are vital for reducing emissions. Success depends on collective efforts. By working together, we can create a sustainable future.